Old Testament theology. In this subject, I will be introducing you to the main theological ideas and concepts of the Hebrew Bible. So, we'll be dealing with certain things that the Hebrew Old Testament communicates about who God is, why He has created the world, why the world has fallen, what is God's agenda to save the world, what is human nature, how human individuality and society works, how God has created His world, how the world works like one, what is the future according to the Old Testament. Simple clarification of terms. The Old Testament will never tell you anything about the Old Testament, because the Old Testament does not see itself as old. We, Christians, who are into a new covenant with God, called the Old Testament old. Right? Why? Because we live with God under new covenant and new conditions. And only in relation to the new, the old can be called old. So, talking about the Old Testament, you already understand that I'll be giving you Christian perspective on the Hebrew Bible and the text of the Hebrew Bible. Secondly, theology comes from the word theos, which is God in Greek, and logos, which means words. Words. So basically, theology is a technical term that relates to everything that we can say about God. Everything we say about God is called theology. What we say about God is called theology. Theos and logos. So basically, what is the theology of the Old Testament? What does the Old Testament say about God and God's doing? God's character, God's nature, God's doing. So the first introductory question, now we're in the lecture which is an introduction to the matter, to the subject, is why studying the Old Testament? Why studying the Old Testament? Since we have the New Testament, why in the world are we supposed to study the Old? Let me give you several reasons why Christians who are under the new covenant or the new conditions in relating to God are supposed to be studying the Old. The New Testament is not a new revelation in the sense of entirely new. The New Testament is a continuation of a story that has begun in the Old, of promises that were given in the Old. So basically, the New Testament is not a brand new revelation. It is continuation. I'll give you an example. The New Testament does not retell the story of creation in a new way. Why? Because the New Testament understanding of the creation is built on the Old. And basically, the New Testament will tell us how God saves the world that He created. The story of creation that we have is only in the Old Testament. So, continuation. We have to understand that divine knowledge is a river. So basically, you cannot say this is the old river, this is the new river. It's one river. Right? And we need to see the continuation. The New Testament is a natural outflow of the Old. So, Old and New is just a reference for us. I'll give you another example from natural life. Scientists are saying that because cells are multiplying, some cells are born and others die out. In a period of 7 years, the whole body is regenerated in a way. So, within a period of 7 years, all the cells within our body are brand new. The old has died. But we never called our new body new. Because to us this is a natural process. It's a continuation. Right? In the very same way, we're to look at the relationship between the new and the old. There are new things that God is doing, but He's doing them within the context of what He has already begun. Right? So, continuation. There was an American theologian by the name B.Th. who said that the knowledge in the Old Testament, or the revelation of the Old Testament, was like a room that was fancily furnished, but unenlightened. So the revelation of the Old Testament is like a fancy room, like a room full of goods, but without any light in it. So the New Testament is the light into the room. But again, things have been set in place already. Right? So light is not the new content. Light is what makes things visible. Things that are already there. In a way, the New Testament, of course, it is a progress in God accomplishing human salvation. It's a step ahead, so to say. There's a real progress into God accomplishing redemption for humanity. But again, in the New Testament, we have a lot of things enlightened. We have Jesus retelling the stories of the patriarchs. He talks often about Abraham, he talks about Moses, he talks about the Exodus, he talks about the wandering in the desert, he relives the Hebrew history. But again, he's bringing light into it. He becomes the light of what has already begun. The redemption story, the choosing of Israel, the prophetic promises about the age to come. So, in that way, there's a real relation between the old and the new, and the division of both damages our understanding of God's total plan for redemption. The new doesn't work without the old, and the other way around. Just as we claim that we cannot understand the Old Testament without the New, we can say the very same about the New. We cannot understand the New without the Old. There's another great thinker that was one of the fathers of the Western Church, called Augustine. He said something in Latin. He often was doing poetry. His theology is very poetic. In Latin it sounds like this: Novum testamentum in vetere latet et in novo vetus patet, which means the New Testament is hidden within the Old, and the Old is revealed in the New. So we have a statement that the New Testament NT is hidden within the old, but the old is revealed. Some words, English is not my native tongue, so excuse my mistakes. How is revealed spelled in English? Revealed, like this?
Yes.
Revealed. The Americans would say, pardon my Greek. Okay. New Testament is hidden within the Old, and the Old is revealed in the New. Now think about this. The New Testament is like a child that is conceived in the womb of a mother, which is the Old Testament. It is already there. They belong to each other, right? And so it's not visible, it's not clear, but it's there. It's like a new life into the old life. And at one point, it comes out. But then it's very often the case the children bear the features, visual or character, of their parents. You can really tell by the tone, by the words they speak, by the gestures, the movement of their body, by the talents they have, that they're children of certain parents, right? So in a way, it is the New Testament that fully reveals the Old and the meaning of the Old Testament. Again, we have a continuation. You understand that Jesus quotes the Old Testament very, very often. Why? Because the Old Testament is his Bible. He has no other Bible. He has no other Holy Scriptures to quote. He's been educated in what we call now Old Testament. His worldview is shaped by what the Old Testament has to say about God. So in a way, Jesus brings new revelation and new knowledge. He brings humanity further into the knowledge of God. But first, he has to be trained as a human being into what the Old Testament has to say about God. That's why in the first encounter with the devil in the desert, 3 times he says, "It is written." And he calls the Old Testament what we call the Old Testament. Back then he couldn't call it the Old Testament. He called it Scripture. Anyway, so Jesus quotes the Scripture regularly. Paul as well. All the apostles who have written sacred texts in the New Testament, they always quote the Old, enlightening it, bringing new understanding of what certain texts meant. So it is very valuable for a Christian to understand the Old Testament, because the Old Testament worldview was the worldview of Christ and his apostles. You know that except Luke, there are no other writers of New Testament texts that are not Jews or Hebrew. So, to those people, the Old Testament was the Bible. So, in many texts of the New Testament, we have an affirmation of the Old. But you need to understand that Christians have a very special way of reading the Old Testament. To them, the whole Old Testament was prophetic in nature. So, for Christians, prophetic history, prophetic wisdom, prophetic poetry. These are all genres within the Old Testament corpus. But to Christians, they were all prophetic. Why? Because they all reveal one and the same thing: Christ. So, the early Christians based their understanding of the Old Testament on the foundation of Christ and who He was, what He did. Now remember the text in which Paul talks about the inspiration, the divine inspiration of the Old Testament. Let's find this text. It's very important. All Scripture is divinely inspired. 2 Timothy. So, 2 Timothy. through 16. We do a serious mistake by reading only the verse that says all Scripture is God-breathed or divinely inspired. We need to start a little further up in the text. Paul explains something that is very personal to Timothy. This is verse 14. It says, "But as for you, continue in what you have learned and have become convinced of, because you know those from whom you learned it, and how from infancy you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Jesus Christ." And then he says all Scripture is God-breathed or divinely inspired. Now when Paul talks to Timothy and tells him, from youth, you've been taught into the Scriptures. You have learned the Scriptures. What Scriptures does he refer to? His own? His letters? The Gospels? Or what? He refers to the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament. He calls Scriptures, which is history, wisdom, poetry. Later on, I will show you how the Hebrew Bible is divided into three major corpuses of literature that were shaped in different historical periods. But for Paul, Scripture is what we now call the Old Testament. But listen what he says. He says to Timothy, you've been taught since your youth into those texts, and they can make you wise for salvation only through Jesus Christ. In other words, if you don't put Christ into it, if you don't look through Christ to understand it, if you don't put Christ as glasses to read the Old Testament with, you're lost. So you can get salvation and wisdom from the Old Testament, from Scripture, only in the light of Christ. So Christ is the one who helps us to make sense of the Old Testament. It is the new that reveals the old. So, if we are to argue about the divine inspiration of the New Testament, we need to take a slightly different approach. We cannot use that text because that text does not include the New Testament, which was not yet written, let alone canonized. Okay? So, things have to be put in perspective. Paul approves the divine inspiration of the Old Testament, but again, Christ is superior, and only through Christ the Old Testament makes sense. Only through Christ it leads to salvation, it leads to faith, it leads to wisdom. So in that sense, only Christ can break the seals of that book. Right? He is the key to understanding it. So, prophetic, but again, since we're in a Bible school, let me use heavy artillery in terms of theological terms. Prophetic, but not just, usually when we talk about prophetic, we think about predictions of the future. The New Testament church, the Apostolic Church, has realized that the scripture of the Old Testament is prophetic, but Christocentric. In other words, that the future that the Old Testament predicts and prepares us for is centered in the Christ event, in the coming of Christ, and in the salvation that He acquires for us, or achieves for us through the cross and the resurrection. So prophetic, Christocentric, or Christ-centered. That was the firm belief of the New Testament church. And that is why all of the Old Testament scripture could be understood as prophetic. One question, a quiz. Do you know which of all the Old Testament books is most quoted in the New? Deuteronomy? No. Yes. Psalms. And listen, Psalms is poetry. So, since Psalms are most quoted in the New Testament, it helps us understand that the Christians realized that this is prophetic poetry. It's not just poetry, divinely inspired poetry. It is a poetry that prophetically foretells the coming of Christ. So that's how we Christians read the Old Testament. Prophetic history, prophetic wisdom, prophetic poetry, prophetic prophecy. So let me give you a few references to show you how what we call Old Testament today was the Bible of the early church. Just write down some of the references that I'm going to give you. And you will check them at home. These are details, but you need to have them in your notebooks. Luke 24, verses 32 and 45. Okay, I'm going to give you these references and then we'll do the rest. Luke 24, verses 32 and 45. I should probably write them down for you. Luke 24, 32 and 45. Then Acts 17:2. (1824). James 4:5. These are some of the texts that suggest that the early church was reading, contemplating, and praying through the Old Testament. By the way, I'm going to give you some little details that might be very important for you. One of the reasons why the early church in the book of Acts does its own church services in the courtyard of the temple, one of the reasons, there were many, but one of the reasons why there were church services in the courtyard of the temple is because only the temple library in Jerusalem has all the scrolls that we now call Old Testament. Because production of texts was very expensive in antiquity, and the synagogues, which were local neighborhood churches, if we can call it that way, where people would gather. Synagogue means the gathering of the people. Some of the rich synagogues, they could afford several scrolls, predominantly the Torah, which was the most important 5 books, which is the backbone of the Old Testament, and some fragments of prophets, some fragments of poetry, literature, but there was no synagogue that could afford having copies of all the texts. That was extremely expensive. So only the temple library had all the texts that we call today the Old Testament. And part of the reason why the early church will gather in the courts of the temple was that the apostles would have access to the library. They would read, they would contemplate, they will dialogue, they will pray through those texts. And then, in the light of what they have written, they would understand the prophetic message of all of this collected texts, and they would see how it points to Christ. So, for example, in the Gospel of Matthew, which was written sometime in the 60s or early 70s, Matthew uses the term "as it is written," or this happened so that certain scripture could be fulfilled. Now you need to understand that Matthew could say that after 30 years of reflection and reading the Old Testament. He did not get the point when the things were happening. They really didn't get the point when things were happening. It took them decades to understand what Jesus was doing. So, for example, in the entry of Christ in Jerusalem, when he rides on a donkey, Matthew would say, well, this was done so that the scripture in Zechariah could be fulfilled. The scripture, your king is coming riding on a foal. This is something that the apostles did not get when it was really happening. It took them years of reflection to realize it. So they were in the temple, in an intensive prayer, contemplation, reading scripture, and reworking their minds about who Christ is and why he saves us this way, through death and resurrection, because that was not obvious